السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. inshallah, till if anyone still are going to join, just for a few minutes, inshallah ta'ala, just a reminder, and if there's any questions, we can make this more of a session for questions, inshallah. As we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made us as human beings, we go through two major things. These are the two main things that we need to see how to bring them together. First is the commands of Allah, the deen of Allah, the Ubudiyyah to Allah, the servitude to Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to worship Him alone. So we have wahi, revelation from Allah, the Quran, the Sunnah. Versus the other thing is these things that we experience in life, the Qadar of Allah, the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed upon us, with all what that means, whether it's on an individual level or for the entire ummah, relationships, everything. So when a person sees for himself at this moment what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for each and every one of us, some healthy, some sick, some rich, some poor, some have good spouses, some they have bad spouses, some are not married, they have children are obedient, disobedient, children healthy, children not healthy, neighbors that are good, bad neighbors, job there's challenges in it, and it keeps on going on and on. Major things, minor things. So all of these things are part of the qadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our job in this life is to make sure that the ahkam and the awamir, the commands of Allah and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade, are applied in all of these different circumstances and things that we face in our life on a daily basis. So we have the furud and the wajibat, the obligations, what's between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that has nothing to do with the human beings. The tawheed of Allah, to stay away from shirk, associating partners with Allah, to establish the 5 daily salah in its time, and to give the zakat, to fast the month of Ramadan, like the ibadat, our relationship with the Quran, the book of Allah. So these things are to be observed, and the sins to stay away from it. And then whatever we face in our life, we will face all kinds of things that would distract us from these obligations. Salatul Dhuhr, for example, it's time for Salatul Dhuhr and something of a distraction comes along. What a person would put forward, the prayer or something else. That's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dhikr of Allah, the Quran. So these two things always we have to witness that we are being now tested. We have ilm to learn, and that's why the ahkam al-awamir wal-nawahi we have to learn these matters, which is the religion of Allah versus what we face in this life. And we have to make sure that it's to be done according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And that's the purpose of life. This is what this life is all about. And if we're having this specifically for the sisters, of course, both men and women are addressed with the entire deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are certain things unique for men, certain things are unique for women, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. So part of the qadar of Allah, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created someone to be a woman, so that means she has certain characteristics that would be very specific to being a woman. And therefore the ahkam that relates to this, the rulings that relates to this has to be observed according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Whether it's learning the rules of tahara, purification, for example, the salah, the hijab, and it's not according to what the people define it for us, or the 21st century, or this or that, but it's according to the wahy from Allah. So the ahkam wal awamir and the nawahi, we know it from the revelation from Allah. So that is to be submitted to. We have to submit ourselves to it. And that doesn't change over time and different circumstances. We change the circumstances to fit the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have relationships. Marriage is a relationship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. And there are the characteristics of a righteous husband, the characteristics of a righteous wife, who to choose as a spouse, all of these things. What if it didn't happen? What if the heart changes? Someone can change. This is a valid thing to happen. So how to deal with it? Not to leave it to our own desires, but to deal with it according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And this is one of the things also that we live in times when people turned away from the ahkam from Allah. And they still, for example, they get married, but the divorce rate is very high. And the reason for that is that for many cases, people do not understand the role that they play as a husband or wife. This is not according to the environment that they're in, it's according to the wahy from Allah. So, what are the rights to be observed? And we have to overcome our egos and our desires to fulfill the commands of Allah and to face challenges in this life with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّا لَكَبِيرَةٌ عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Seek help in patience and in salah. And to frequently mention death. What made the early generations of Islam steadfast upon the deen of Allah is that life was shown to its reality to them. The Prophet ﷺ said to them, أَكْثِرُوا ذِكْرَ هَذِهِ مِنْ لَذَّاتِ. Frequently mention the destroyer of desires, which is death. When a person always think of death, it's for some it might mean that this life is not pleasant if a person always think that way. But actually, it doesn't matter whether it's pleasant or not. I'm just being extreme here in the way that we think. Does it matter whether this life is pleasant or not? The answer should be no, it doesn't really matter. Of course, we all want this, and there's nothing wrong with having this. But what really matters at the end is what? Is that the person enters Jannah and is saved from the hellfire. What really matters at the end is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us now, right, who cares if you have a bad spouse or bad neighbor or whatever? That means you are passing the test that you are in now with regards to these things that you don't like on the face of earth. Certain things that you're uncomfortable with, right? People might say, oh, just get rid of it. And that's the solution to it. Not necessarily. We have to learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And maybe this is what is best for us. وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَى أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Maybe that you hate something and it's good for you. Maybe that you love something and it's bad for you. Allah knows best and you do not know. So the goal of life is not to have a happy life. The goal of life is to be establishing the Ubudiyyah to Allah. And if someone established the Ubudiyyah of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the happiness in their hearts. And there's a major difference between both. So what's in the heart is what matters. Because if someone says, will make you the happiest person on the face of earth, but you have to be disobedient to Allah, a Muslim would never say, okay. Why? Because the goal is not about being happy on the face of earth. The goal is to be obedient to Allah. That's the goal. That's the most important. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَأَنَّهُ هُوَ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that makes someone smile, and He's the one that makes someone cry. Everything is by Allah. So that we're not distracted. So the goal is the ubudiyyah to Allah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us true servants of Allah and to give us this humbleness and the submission to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. جزاكم الله خير. طيب, we'll stop here inshallah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى صحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all inshallah.